Aida, welcome to Podstep Pop-Up Studio. This is Step 2026. What brought you here this year?
The weather.
It's interesting that how people actually observing that the weather is really cool. It's in the afternoon. It was quite hot.
Yeah, it was quite hot today. I mean, that's definitely one of the things that brought me here. But the thing I think that what keeps me coming back to Dubai is I love the energy here. The energy. I just wrapped a panel speaking about decoding go-to-market playbooks in the age of AI, and one of the things we talked about is how everyone is, and the panelists were kind of from all over the world, but one thing we had in common is how impressed we are with the speed of adoption of AI, specifically in Dubai, and how awesomely you guys are embracing it and embedding it into the ecosystem, even government infrastructure. So innovation, energy, hype.
I think Dubai is a lot about the wow effect and the hype in a good sense, of course, because that creates that energy that attracts people from all over the world to come here and to do things. But surprise, but that is the first conversation about AI for me today.
That's a big surprise.
It is, isn't it? So what's new from AI adoption in the UAE and the region specifically?
Well, so I'm not from the region, so I am lucky enough to have an outside perspective on it. But one of the things that we talked about from my perspective, because my background is building Silicon Valley startups, specifically in the software, fintech, and mobility space. I did that for 10 years. Now I'm based in Europe. I've got my own agency called Break the Ice. I work with founders and advising them on strategy and also helping them raise capital. So I connect founders with capital. And so Middle East for me is a new area that I get to call home. I call it like my plus, my third base. And so the cool thing about this is I get to view things through the Silicon Valley playbook, which is all about iteration and velocity. You know, Europe is all about governments and compliance, and now to see it through the Dubai lens of just, again, the embrace and the attitude towards adopting innovation and how your government is leaning in. I feel like that's one of the biggest takeaways for me was you guys really set the standard and how it should be supported and embedded into the frameworks that I think, I'm not going to name those European countries, but that a lot of countries can learn from.
So if we compare it with the Silicon Valley, culture standards, so where we are, well, I don't like comparisons, but let's put it this way. So is Dubai AI culture, has it reached the level of the global standard in terms of innovation, in terms of ability to grow an AI solution into something that really closes the market gap, overcoming the hype and overcoming the wow effect, let's say?
Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt Silicon Valley is the golden standard, right? It's the benchmark, it's everyone's North Star, and that's not really going away. But I think one of the unique things that UAE has done is that you guys have carved out certain markets, or the Middle East, for example, KSA with gaming, right? Dubai coming out saying we're going to be the crypto capital of the world, right? And now not just using AI as an adoption tool, but again embedding it into the infrastructure and how you build companies and do things. And so I think from that standpoint, it's cool because you guys have picked your segments and verticals, and then you're really double clicking on those and just honing in and owning them. And I gotta say, I mean, the energy wise, there's of course there's a lot of noise, and when you have a lot of hype, there's also a lot of, again, we'll just call it noise for lack of a better word, but I think there's also real talent, and I also feel like there's a lot of cross-cultural talent that you guys have been really good at doing, is attracting that top tier Silicon Valley talent here and helping you build out and architect the systems, the go-to-market playbooks. Now, in regards to the playbook itself, the rinse and repeat Silicon Valley playbook is It's not going to work here because it's a completely different market. But also, it's not just going to work. It's not even going to work anywhere because the playbook is changing. I mean, look what's happening with product market fit, for example, right? It used to take startups months to be able to iterate a product. Now you can validate in minutes. And so, again, thanks to AI tools. And that also changes things like a conversation I was having about raising capital. Initially, going back to Silicon Valley being the gold standard, everyone's like, oh, how do I get into YC, Y Combinator? I want to, graduate from Y Combinator. I want those investors. I want to raise venture. And I'm like, why? I mean, back in the day, sure, that gave you some sort of street cred and gravitas. But now it's more of like, it may give you a headache. It may delay you. One of the companies, the last notable company I used to work for full time before I started my agency was called Fair. We were the first subscription app to give people access to mobility via phone. And so this is 2017, so it was magic. You download the app, take a photo of your driver's license, and we would automatically show you cars you're pre-qualified for. You would sign with your finger, and the car would be magically delivered. Our founder was obsessed with creating a magical experience, and it was truly magic. I mean, it was a unicorn company.
Yeah.
We reached unicorn status in the first 3 years, 1.3 billion valuation. We were backed by SoftBank, and we supplied all the Uber drivers in the US with cars. So that was a big brand experience, and it also failed. And
That's
so,
right.
The playbooks that worked in the past, raising that kind of capital was actually kind of one of the things that got us in trouble in the first place. It's like, make sure you pick the right investor, because SoftBank is known for deep pockets and giving you that tailwind that you need to go fast and be the first. But with that also comes management.
Yeah.
And, we were kind of forced we initially started with the regular customer segment, and then we segued into rideshare because of SoftBank. They're big in mobility. And so they saw Fair as a tool to help grow Uber. And eventually that's kind of what ended up killing the company. And so be careful what you ask for, because when you're raising capital, those investors will come in and they will have their own set of rules. Nowadays, we talked about vibe coding. I don't know.
Yeah, of course, yes.
I'm so embarrassed to admit I have not vibe coded yet, but immediately after this, I'm going home and I'm gonna learn, and I'm gonna go on Lovable and figure out a way to create something new. But you don't need an investor. You have all of the tools that you used to need capital for to be able to build your MVP. At this point, with the speed, with the access to tools that you have, you should be able to build something on the fly, validate it, iterate it, and see if it works.
So question, you mentioned a couple of times the old playbook.
Yeah.
But how reliable, let's say, those AI ecosystem of different services and different tools compared to the playbook that worked for, let's say, years? I mean, it relates to any niche, not only, let's say, go-to-market strategy for startups, but in this particular, for example, you mentioned to validate a product used to take months. Now it takes hours to do that. How reliable is that result?
Yeah, I mean, so I wish there was like a simple way to answer this. I guess the best way is like, you have to really go back to just what's your focus, having a really clear ICP. If you have a fuzzy ICP, or if you don't have clean data, anything you build on top of that is only going to help you fail faster or automate faster, right? Force multiplier was a great word that one of the panel members used several times, and so that's what it does, right? It's a stress test. And so I think using the traditional go-to-market playbook, I think it's outdated. You got to look at who your customer really is, and that's the great thing with AI. It's going to help you validate who your actual customer is versus who you think it is, and it'll help you do that fast.
That's an interesting point. The traditional playbook and the new system of different AI tools. Obviously, you're someone who believes in AI and believes that this particular system is more to support and help to do things faster. So the other narrative that I came across this year at STEP is, unlike what you're saying about AI, people are looking for more of a human element in any sort of process that they have in business. And I had a few speakers, a few interviews in the morning that are talking exactly about that. So can we have a real human telling his story with imperfections? So I want to ask you, so where do you see a threat in this amount of AI within, let's say, even the validation process? And
Yeah.
how do you keep the human within that
Yeah.
process?
I don't know about you, but I feel like the us versus them story is getting quite old. And again, it's outdated, right? So if we kind of flip that and look at it, look, it's not an us versus you thing. It's a superpower. It's a
Yeah.
tool that we get to have. I mean, imagine, we're lucky to be educated in like you grew up in London, I grew up in the US, and so we have the education, the knowledge, the tools. Think about being from a developing country and not having that, and now discovering this superpower and sitting there and being able to create without speaking the language, by the way, right? And so I think I think that's what it comes down to, actually, language. So, which is our oldest tool in the box as humans, right? Initially it was oral, and we got into like storytelling. Actually, singing songs, I was reading, was one of the first ways to communicate before we could speak the actual language. But so speaking that AI language, because if you look at it today, I think so the next big thread is, so to go back to your original question, us versus them, I think the way I look at it like natural selection. The way we don't eclipse ourselves out of this game is we learn these tools, we learn how to speak these languages. If you think about it, for example, from an HR standpoint, you're applying for a job. Whoever's screening your resume is not a who, is not a he or she. It's a system, right? And so we need to learn the language of speaking AI, understanding that the other side is also speaking AI back to you. So prompts, learning how to architect systems in such ways that it will pick up and read those things and understand what we're trying to accomplish. So then again, we can use it as our superpower, as a tool, because the human element is not going away. I mean, I hope not. We still, how does AI help you? If you're in a boardroom and you're having a high stakes negotiation with an investor, how do you read the room? What about the emotional intelligence? What about the, being able to network and the human factor? So there's definitely a balance, but I think it's up to us to lean in and say, how can I use this to benefit me to get ahead?
I agree, and I think it's an absolutely interesting point on learning the new language and adopting this language into what you're really good at, right? Is there a space for non-AI, non-AI language situations? Let's say, so I came across an interesting post the other day on LinkedIn. Somebody was telling that he was tired of every day a new AI tool would come into place, and people were struggling with adopting this and adopting that and building that architecture and doing these things. And he said, and in parallel, my favorite singer released a new album on a CD. He said, who is even listening to CDs these days? But he said, it felt like a relief for me, because he said, and I was thinking about it, what happened? Like, why does it feel like a relief? And he said, because he was real. I mean, he was like doing the thing that he was doing for years, and he was known for that. And he released a new album of songs, and he said that was very fresh. So, question to you. So, is there any space in this whole AI world for not just the human, but for real human element? Maybe a poetry, maybe songs, maybe
I was going to
series.
say, what do you consider a human element?
I don't know. I think releasing a CD in the age of AI is like so human.
Yeah.
So silly as well,
Yeah.
probably.
I mean, let me think about that. But at the same time, it's all about startups. I mean, one of the things that are going to get you to stand out the fastest, like, what's your value proposition? How are you standing out from your competition? So then if the trend is going this way and everyone is leaning into automation and everything digital and avatars, and here you are showing up as a human, freestyling, or you mentioned poetry and releasing a CD, yeah, that's pretty notable. You're going to stick out like a sore thumb. So speaking of poetry, I don't know. Why do you say poetry? Are you into poetry?
I do. I
Okay.
do like poetry, and I think we do not have enough of poetic storytelling, let's say, or we're not using enough of that language in the world that everything is automated. Because poetry is emotions. Poetry is a drama, isn't it? Are you into that?
You are speaking my language. Thank you for saying that. I am. I actually, so, and there's a parallel between poetry and so the way what poetry is, it's the way it's architecting language on a page, right? Similar to GTM in a startups, you're architecting a process in a playbook, right? So I love poetry. Poetry is one of my love languages. It's been my secret language for over 2 decades.
It's interesting when we
And
always keep it secret, right?
why? Well, I want to know why you think it's secret. And I'll
I
tell you
just
why
don't
it's
want
mine.
to be taken as very, very dramatic, because I think poetry is the drama. Whatever you cannot express within a prose, you use the poetry.
Yeah, so it's a feeling, an emotion,
Yeah,
right?
a lot
But
of
isn't it
feeling.
interesting? You can't, but that emotion captures and resonates on the other side, where you be talking about different things or different language, but you feel it. So that connective tissue of feeling is so human, and I think poetry is just such a beautiful way to display that and speak that language. And so I am actually releasing a poetry collection called Everything is Fleeting. It's going to be released later this year, and so it's how do I describe it? Are you into meditation?
Well, yes, kind of, yes.
A living, breathing meditation on impermanence, love, ambition, and the art of becoming. I have used poetry as a language to speak to myself, sort of like a therapist. And I would write poetry in the form of love letters for the last 20 years. If I'm experiencing a heartbreak, grief, something difficult at work, it's like my way to just download everything into my pages, journaling, but then in the form of like verse rhyme. That's just my jam. And so now that I realize, I'm like, okay, this is really cool. Maybe it made me feel so good. Maybe like if I have the balls to publish it and grow up and not feel so vulnerable, then this will speak to somebody else. So I'm actually releasing that later this year.
I've never heard anyone talking about poetry in such a beautiful way of using it as a form of talking to yourself, first of all, and as a form of a therapy, sort of,
Yeah.
as well. So, congratulations on that.
you so
And
much.
it's been a pleasure talking to you, Aida. And so I hope we stay connected. And
Yes.
we'll find a way how to apply the AI architectures in the ever-changing hype of Dubai, right?
Thank you. And shout out to the STEP team, Ray, Aza. You guys did a great job. This is my first step. It definitely won't be my last. And thanks for an awesome event.
Thank you. Yay.
Thank you.